AiPODCAST. We are sorry we were away for 2 weeks.
We are, but we're definitely glad to be back.
Absolutely thrilled to be back, actually, and ready to plunge into another listener-curated set of sources. Today, we're embarking on, well, it's a truly fascinating journey. Sometimes, honestly, quite bewildering, into the digital life of a very unique, very prominent online personality. DSP.
Indeed. And our sources for this deep dive, they're a really compelling mix. We've got YouTube commentary channels, quite a few of them, alongside DSP's own public statements, his streams, the whole lot.
Right.
And together, they paint this multifaceted picture, often contradictory, actually, and deeply complex. We're looking at his online persona, his unusual financial strategy.
Very unusual.
His gaming habits, which are a whole thing in themselves, and maybe most revealingly, his evolving self-perception, how he sees himself under that constant internet glare.
Exactly. So our mission today, really, is to pull out the most critical insights, the genuinely surprising facts from all this material. We want to offer you, our listener, a kind of shortcut, to understand the complex dynamics going on here, the kind of understanding you'd only get from, like, days of watching streams and commentary. We're distilling it down.
And we're aiming to stay objective, right? We're looking at the content presented in the sources, exploring how this one individual navigates, or maybe tries to navigate, the intense scrutiny of the internet.
Often, it seems, revealing way more than he maybe intends to.
That definitely seems to be the case. It's quite the ride, and honestly, a profound case study for the digital age we're in.
Couldn't agree more. Right. The currency of contradiction. DSP's financial imperative.
All right, let's dive right into the deep end here, shall we?
Let's do it.
Because our sources, they immediately highlight this central theme. It's relentless, absolutely pervasive in DSP's online presence. The constant, persistent, almost desperate appeals for money, financial support.
Yeah, that phrase, I need that money, I really, really do. You hear it over and over again in the clips. It's like a mantra, isn't it? It echoes through just tons of the material we looked at.
Yeah.
It's not just a statement. It feels almost like the foundation of his whole content operation.
It really does. And this phrase, it underpins what the sources see as this financial imperative. It seems to drive, pretty much every aspect of his streaming and content creation. The material details just this huge array of support mechanisms he asks for. We're talking super chats during the streams, channel memberships, Kick subscriptions, direct tips through PayPal, whatever.
All the avenues.
All of them. And the sheer constancy of the requests, it's really striking. You hear, please, let's get our first super chat or first membership, first sub of the week over on Kick because we don't have one yet, Yeah,
the not one yet is a classic.
And even these direct, almost pleading calls for one sub, one singular sub, come on. It's just this ongoing demand for immediate, tangible financial validation right now.
And what's so fascinating, almost paradoxical about it, is his justification for not changing his content based on what the audience says they want, even while he's constantly asking them for money.
It's a real disconnect, isn't it?
Totally. He explicitly argues people don't actually support what they claim they want. He uses Mario Kart as, the prime example.
He brings that one up a lot.
So instead of adapting, he just pivots, declares he'll move to other things that I like, and famously says, I'm in control, not you.
Which is such a direct, almost confrontational way to approach content creation, especially, like you said, when you're simultaneously asking that same audience to fund you. It seems kind of counterintuitive.
Right. He sticks to this position, though, basically saying if people don't support what he's doing, well, that's their fault, not his for, not giving them what they supposedly asked for.
And that confrontational stance, it gets even more complex when you put it next to the sheer unpredictability of his earnings. That's another theme the sources really hammer home.
Oh, yeah.
Which brings us to what a lot of observers have called the PayPal paradox.
Yes, the PayPal paradox. Sounds intriguing.
It is, in a frustrating sort of way. DSP has repeatedly and very loudly voiced his intense frustrations with PayPal. He claims they frequently freeze his tips.
And not just big ones, right?
No. That's the thing. Even small amounts, like, $2, $10, held for over a month, he says. And then the larger tips, anything over $100, those can apparently be held indefinitely, sometimes for months. It creates this huge financial uncertainty for him.
Wow. That sounds incredibly disempowering, just waiting for your money.
Exactly. He describes PayPal's actions as totally arbitrary. He gives these bizarre, almost unbelievable examples. Like, he recalled tips being frozen because, and this is his words, a donor's name was like the country of Iran or Iraq.
Seriously.
And
That's wild.
it points to what he sees as this deeply flawed, uncontrollable system. He highlights his complete lack of control, lack of agency over it. These frozen funds might just randomly unfreeze at any moment.
So it adds this profound layer of financial unpredictability to his day-to-day. It's like playing some weird high-stakes lottery every single day, just hoping the money he thinks he's earned actually shows up.
Definitely. And at that lack of control, it really seems to feed into this larger narrative he has, of external forces constantly hindering his success. It's always something else.
Always something else, yeah.
And that very unpredictability, that feeling of being, at the mercy of these external systems, it extends very clearly to his earnings from Kick as well. He often describes that as a feast or famine situation.
Right. Kick. That was the platform he moved to, partly because of the PayPal issues, wasn't it?
Partly, yeah.
Yeah.
But he explicitly states his income from the Kick Partner program is way lower than minimum wage. Often just a pittance, he calls it, for his regular stream.
A pittance. Ouch.
Yeah. He claims it only really becomes good during his marathon sessions, these really long streams that obviously take a lot more effort and time. So it paints this picture of a creator just constantly teetering on the edge, unable to rely on a stable, predictable income from his main platform.
Which, again, just highlights this incredibly volatile, precarious financial setup he has.
Totally.
He talks openly about weeks of overabundance where support flows in, followed by these totally dead periods where almost nothing comes in.
Which naturally leads back to those constant, almost desperate pleas for one sub.
Right. And he doesn't really shy away from showing his frustration, does he? With Kick viewers who are watching and you're not supporting.
Not at all. He even goes so far as to threaten to just end streams abruptly if the financial support doesn't show up right then and there.
Yeah, there's that quote, "No one just said no. Well, that's it. I'm turning the stream off right now."
It's not just a request at that point, is it? It feels like a form of, financial coercion almost. Directly linking the content continuing to immediate money. Holding the stream hostage for support, basically.
Yeah, hostage feels about right. It's a strange dynamic.
Which brings us, I think, to probably one of the most widely discussed and, frankly, bewildering aspects of his financial habits, what the sources often call the WWE champion's coping mechanism.
Ah, the mobile game spending. Yes. This is something else.
It really is. The material provides extensive documentation, lots of evidence of his significant spending on this mobile game, WWE Champion.
And the timing is often notable.
Extremely notable. He reportedly spent, the figure varies slightly, maybe $792, maybe $592 on Hogans, which are basically just virtual JPEGs of wrestler characters in the game.
It's just pictures, yeah.
Right, and he did this shortly after Hulk Hogan's death was reported. And he presented this really unusual, very public spending spree as a form of mourning, a way to cope with losing an idol.
Wow. That's a uniquely expensive way to mourn. A very public, financially impactful display of grief.
Definitely. And crucially, this wasn't just a one-off thing, which is key here.
Right. The sources link it to donations, don't they?
Insistently. They link previous large expenditures in this game directly to audience donations. It creates this direct pipeline, almost transactional, from viewer support straight into his in-game spending.
So like a big donation comes in.
And bam. He reportedly spent $995 in the game almost immediately after getting a $1,000 dent. That's his term for a large donation from a viewer.
Right, the dents.
Another example cited is $420 spent for some kind of Mr. High Top contest within the game.
Just gone into the game.
And the cumulative spending they document is truly staggering. Commentators point out nearly $20,000 spent in just 7 months of 2025 alone.
$20,000 on a mobile game.
In 7 months. That's what the analysis shows. And analysts project that even that pace might fall considerably short of his own projected $40,000 annual spending on the game, especially if Kick support dries up or if those big dent donations become less frequent.
$40,000 a year projected. Wow.
But what's really insightful here is how the sources connect this recurring behavior to his psychological coping strategy.
Okay, yeah. How do they frame that?
Well, one very direct observation puts it like this. Whenever Phil has a bad day or something bad happens to him, he goes and runs to his squeeze box, which is WWE champions, and he wastes money on sweaty JPEGs.
His squeeze box. That's vivid.
Isn't it? So it's not just seen as impulsive spending. Commentators identify it as a core coping mechanism, almost an automatic reflex to stress or perceived personal setbacks.
So bad day equals.
Yeah.
Spend money on WWE champions.
That's the pattern they describe. This squeeze box behavior illustrates this loop where virtual consumption becomes the primary, albeit financially ruinous, outlet for emotional regulation, especially in moments of distress or loss.
It suggests this profound reliance on immediate digital gratification to handle real-world emotions instead of, maybe healthier coping strategies.
Exactly. It really gives you a sense of the inner workings, potentially, or at least how observers are interpreting those workings. It's quite revealing, isn't it?
It really is. It paints this vivid picture of a self-reinforcing cycle.
Yeah.
Stress leads to spending, which then fuels the need for more donations to cover it, or just to repeat the cycle.
Precisely.
And this whole idea of conditional content directly tied to hitting financial goals, it extends beyond just his personal coping stuff, doesn't it? It goes right into his actual gameplay choices. Minecraft is a big example.
Oh, absolutely. Minecraft is a perfect case study. He openly states he will quit games like Minecraft if specific financial goals, like a $150 daily target, aren't met, which puts huge pressure on his audience.
It creates this really precarious situation for viewers who might actually be invested in watching him play that specific game.
Totally. And the sources talk about this specific incentive he offered. Pay $20 to name something in his Minecraft world, like a pet or a location.
Okay, yeah, I remember seeing clips of that.
But the inherent contradiction there is just glaring, isn't it? He's asking for this direct financial investment, $20 a pop, while simultaneously threatening to just abandon the game entirely if his overall daily goal isn't met.
Which makes that $20 naming fee potentially completely worthless overnight.
Exactly. It's like buying a brick for a building that the contractor says they might just walk away from tomorrow if they don't get paid more. It's a super high-risk proposition for viewers.
Yeah, high-risk viewer investment isn't usually a phrase you associate with watching Minecraft streams.
Right. The commentary explicitly says he uses these games as sticks against his audience, creating what they call negative incentives to donate.
So it's not about enjoying the game together or the shared experience.
Yeah. No. It's about extracting support through these veiled threats, turning the content itself into this constant transactional negotiation rather than just entertainment. It fundamentally changes the whole dynamic, doesn't it? From voluntary watching to this weird sense of financial obligation to the gamer's delusion, performance, blame, and self-proclaimed mastery.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit from the money side of things.
Yeah.
Let's talk about his gaming performance itself, because here we hit another really striking dichotomy.
Yeah, this is where it gets interesting.
On one hand, you have this widespread narrative backed up by tons of clips that DSP is, well, frankly, terrible at games.
But that's definitely a common sentiment you see online, yeah.
But then you have his own, apparently unshakable self-perception of mastery. Like, he thinks he's great.
It's a fascinating clash. The sources are just full of examples, like that infamous Mario Kart performance.
The wrong way incident.
Exactly. He's seen driving the wrong way multiple times, and then he immediately blames the game. He says, why did the game put me the wrong way? That's not good. What is this game doing?
It's just peak externalizing blame, isn't it?
Yeah.
A pattern you see constantly with him.
Textbook. And it's not just Mario Kart. There's that well-documented anecdote about him playing the puzzle game Blueprints.
Right. Tell us about that one.
He apparently argued with his chat for a solid 10 minutes about how to solve a puzzle, just stubbornly resisting their suggestions.
Oh.
Then, when he finally tried a solution, he did it incorrectly. He only eventually succeeded through sheer trial and error, and then offered zero thanks or acknowledgement to the chat who'd been trying to help him the whole time.
Wow. So it seems like he struggles not just with, like, basic game mechanics sometimes, but also with taking help. Or even just constructive criticism.
That's certainly how it appears in these instances. It's like this mindset that just resists any external input, even when it's clearly helpful.
And what's truly fascinating, then, is how these consistent observations of him struggling contrast so sharply with his own self-declarations about his skill.
Oh, it's night and day. Despite all the evidence of his difficulties, like in Mario Kart, he frequently claims to have beat Mario Kart.
Beat it. How does he define beat?
Well, he boasts about getting 2 wins unlocking all the content and overcoming what he perceives as stream snipers, people intentionally trying to disrupt his game.
Ah, the stream snipers, another classic external factor.
And he frames the whole thing as an allegory for real life, a grand narrative of his personal triumph over adversity.
An allegory for real life. Mario Kart.
Yeah. He'll even emphatically state things like, he achieved 100% full-on platinum, all achievements achieved, done, move on, about games where observers clearly saw him struggle immensely.
So it's this unshakable, often seemingly inflated confidence. It seems core to his identity, right? Even when the evidence from his own streams, which the commentary channels document meticulously, suggests the complete opposite.
It's a profound example of cognitive dissonance in action, live on stream. It really is remarkable to observe.
And this pattern, the frustration mixed with self-aggrandizement, it continues with fighting games, doesn't it? A genre he has a long history with.
Oh, definitely. That's where his temper often really boils over.
He often talks down modern fighting games, right?
Yeah.
Like Street Fighter 6.
Yeah, he dismisses them as boring or dumbed down. He much prefers, or claims to prefer, older, supposedly more complex titles like Capcom versus SNK2.
It's almost like the perceived complexity of the older games gives him an excuse, maybe, or lets him frame himself as some kind of purist.
That could be part of it. But his online matches in any of these games are frequently punctuated by these explosive rages.
Right, the yelling, the controller throwing.
And immediately blaming lag for every single mistake. Every dropped combo, every loss, it's always lag.
Always lag.
And he hurls these incredibly vitriolic insults at his opponents, calling them scrubs, pieces of human feces. He singles out specific players like Bakey609 as frequent targets of this absolute fury.
It gets really ugly.
Yeah. And he accuses them of roll mash or lag abuse. Basically any term he can think of to suggest they aren't playing fairly or skillfully.
Yet, despite all this intense, visible frustration and anger,
he still consistently claims he's winning more than I lost and gaining a ridiculous amount of points.
it's just a truly remarkable level of self-deception.
Yeah.
Or maybe just extremely selective memory when it comes to his actual performance.
It really seems that way. It's an almost theatrical level of cognitive dissonance, isn't it?
Totally. And he completely dismisses the idea of competitive gaming, right? He says things like, I don't care about tournaments.
Yeah, he calls the FGC, that's the fighting game community, pussy mode bullshit. He consistently frames his own play as just all for fun.
Which feels incredibly contradictory when you see the sheer aggression, the insults, the intense frustration he's vocalizing constantly during matches.
Exactly. He explicitly says he has no aspirations whatsoever to leave my streaming office and go out there physically to a tournament and play people. He even calls competitive players losers who are wasting your life.
Wow. So it's a total rejection of any kind of structured external validation for his gaming skill. He also makes a point of saying he's not LTG, right?
Yes, that's a specific reference people deep in that commentary space would get. He's trying to distance himself from another notoriously contentious figure in the fighting game scene.
Right. So he wants to be seen as just playing for fun, but not that kind of controversial figure.
It highlights this deep resistance he has to engaging with the competitive side of games on any broader scale or acknowledging any external metrics of skill whatsoever. His self-perception often casts him as the victim of others.
Which brings us neatly to the games journalist plays Doom meme, doesn't it?
Yes. The infamous Doom clip.
He has a very specific take on that, right? He feels completely misrepresented.
Completely. He describes this widely circulated clip where he's playing Doom very cautiously in one specific room. He insists vehemently that this cautious play was absolutely necessary because there were explosive barrels everywhere.
Okay, fair enough. Maybe there are barrels.
But he claims the clip was used totally out of context to deliberately misrepresent his overall gameplay and just make him look incompetent for clicks.
So again, it's external forces being malicious.
Exactly. He believes content creators deliberately take something out of context and lie about it, just for laughs and views. He sees these viral clips as completely disingenuous garbage designed purely to make him look bad, not as, maybe a reflection of a moment where his gameplay was perceived as subpar.
It's that narrative again. constant victimhood at the hands of these malicious external forces. Never an acceptance of, okay, maybe I didn't play that perfectly.
Never. And this pervasive sense of being misunderstood, unfairly targeted by his audience, by commentators, it seemed to reach a kind of dramatic peak in what some sources called the horror game premiere disaster, with that game Ludo.
Oh, right, Ludo. What happened there?
Well, the sources recount his just visible, almost comical confusion about really basic game mechanics. Like, for instance, he got into this lengthy, really perplexing debate about whether the air fresheners in the game were motion-activated or timed.
Air fresheners. In a horror game.
Apparently. And he even started debating with his chat about whether European air fresheners work differently from American ones, trying to justify his confusion.
Oh, my God. That's reaching.
Reaching deep. He also visibly struggled with screen tearing issues, showing a real lack of basic technical troubleshooting know-how.
So the horror wasn't just in the game.
Pretty much. And his critical assessment of the game itself, constantly calling it ass, stupid, repeatedly asking what is going on, it often coincided directly with his rising frustration over slow audience support. The donations weren't coming in fast enough.
So the game gets worse as the money dries up.
It certainly seemed that way. It created this really awkward, almost unwatchable viewing experience. The horror was less about the spooky game and more about the mounting tension from his escalating demands for money. His enjoyment, his critique, everything seemed totally conditional on that immediate financial endpoint. 3. The detractor dilemma. Success, spin, and a self-made echo chamber.
Okay, so moving on from his gaming persona, which is clearly complex, let's dig into his perspective of what he calls the detractor dilemma.
Right, his relationship with criticism and negative commentary.
He holds this really deeply ingrained belief, doesn't he? That basically all negative content about him exists only because monetizing negativity towards me is profitable.
That's his core argument, yeah. He claims it's all just grifters who would vanish overnight, just end if the money disappeared, if they couldn't make YouTube ad revenue or whatever off clips of him.
So he frames it as this purely financial transaction for the critics, a zero-sum game.
Exactly. He argues that the people posting negative stuff about him, what he calls completely disingenuous garbage, are making hundreds to thousands of dollars from it, while his own content struggles to hit even basic daily financial goals.
Which effectively lets him dismiss all external criticism, right?
Smart.
Doesn't matter how valid it might seem. It's not feedback. It's not legitimate observation in his eyes. It's just a malicious, financially motivated attack designed to profit from his supposed downfall.
Precisely. It's a narrative that completely absolves him of any responsibility for how his content is received or perceived. It's always the grifter's fault.
And one of the longest-running, most persistent memes or criticisms is the whole empty game boxes of prizes thing.
Yeah.
He has a defense for that too, right? A surprisingly detailed one.
Oh, he does. Very detailed and quite impassioned. He asserts that when he gave away game boxes, he was always giving away the collector's edition items inside, or maybe autographed materials or other valuable content.
Okay.
And crucially, he insists the participants were always fully aware that the game disc itself might not be included in the box.
Why wouldn't the disc be included?
Well, he claims it was either because he had already traded the disc to get money for new games, or because he specifically needed that disc to access downloadable content, the DLC, for his own playthroughs later.
Okay. So that's his explanation.
And he frames this entire empty box narrative as a deliberate spin by his critics, cooked up solely to make him look bad and deceive, quote, a bunch of ignorant idiots.
Wow. Okay. Strong words.
Very. He claims critics deliberately ignore all the times he supposedly gave away genuinely valuable items, including, he insists, even a PlayStation 4 console once. He says no one talks about that.
Right. So for him, it's not a misunderstanding. It's not maybe poor communication about the prizes. It's a targeted, malicious misrepresentation of his generosity.
That's exactly his stance. This deeply held belief in being constantly misrepresented is absolutely a cornerstone of how he views this whole detractor dilemma.
Now, here's another contradiction. Despite all the daily financial struggles we talked about, the constant begging, the feast or famine income, DSP simultaneously makes these really strong, almost defiant claims about his recent success.
Yeah, this is where the narrative gets really interesting again. He frequently talks about doing way better now, regularly hitting goals, even exceeding goals. He claims more engagement, more support.
Which sounds Almost baffling when you compare it to the daily reality often shown on his streams, right? The constant pleas for one sub.
It's a stark contrast, and he attributes the supposed resurgence directly to what he calls his Kino Casino arc.
Ah, the gambling streams period.
Right. He contends that even though he wasted maybe 6-8 months on it, that whole period ultimately went exactly according to my plan.
His plans. How so?
Well, in his view, it led to a new audience finding him and ultimately more income from both YouTube and Kick. That's his story.
Right.
And he vehemently dismisses any counter-arguments or observations. Like people pointed out he seemed felted, broke or financially ruined by the gambling.
Right. Felted is the term often used.
He just redefines the terms. He asserts his current financial and lifestyle position is actually great and so much better than before. He claims it allows him to buy games, consoles, take days off with his wife. He explicitly states, "My bankruptcy was over 5 years ago. Things are great. Things have bounced back."
So it's this powerful, maybe self-serving narrative construction that just seems to fly in the face of a lot of the observable facts presented in the sources.
Absolutely. It demonstrates a real ability to craft a reality that suits his needs, regardless of external evidence. It's quite something.
And his perspective on Twitter engagement is equally unique, isn't it? Almost bordering on conspiratorial.
That's a good way to put it. He believes his remarkably low positive engagement on Twitter, likes, supportive replies, isn't because of his content or his persona.
No, why that?
It's because, in his words, no one engages with me on Twitter besides trolls because everyone's afraid to get stalked, harassed, doxxed, and attacked by trolls.
Wow. So his potential supporters are just too scared to interact.
That's his theory. He argues that thousands of people read his tweets, but almost no one responds, purely out of fear of repercussions from these, phantom trolls.
Mm.
And consequently, his advice to his genuine supporters is just ignore it all, block and move on from any harassment. Don't engage, because responding is exactly what they want.
Which effectively creates this really insular environment, doesn't it? The self-made echo chamber.
Precisely. Negative engagement from detractors gets amplified as this huge malicious force, while any potential positive engagement from actual supporters is, in his view, suppressed by fear. It guarantees that his own narrative about his online standing, his success, remains largely unchallenged, at least from within his immediate circle. 4. The persona versus reality. A deep dive into perceived decline.
Okay, let's pivot now to what our sources really start to frame as the persona versus reality. And this is where that theme you mentioned earlier, the idea of a continual mental decline, really comes into focus based on the commentary.
Yeah, it's a stark contrast that emerges between DSP's own narrative, his own pronouncements, and the observed facts or behaviors documented by these channels.
It almost feels like watching a performance sometimes, doesn't it? The discrepancy between what he says and what people are seeing is just fascinating. And sometimes, honestly, a bit concerning.
What's truly fascinating here, and it's a central observation from many commentators, is how his own words and actions seem to illustrate this pattern that some identify as learned helplessness.
Learned helplessness. Okay, unpack that a bit.
Well, it raises this really important question about the internal state of a creator under this kind of intense, constant scrutiny. Is the behavior we see a conscious choice, or is it maybe a deeper psychological shift, where convenience, or maybe just sheer avoidance, consistently wins out over actually solving problems?
Like the brain just gives up trying when faced with constant negativity or overwhelming tasks, even if the resources are there.
That's the idea. It's almost like, as you said before, a muscle that just atrophies over time, the problem-solving muscle. And the sources provide these numerous, almost painfully specific examples.
Right, the household stuff.
Exactly. His unfixed toilet, the broken shower, a malfunctioning dishwasher. These aren't huge, complex issues necessarily.
Things most homeowners would just fix.
Right. And despite clearly having the financial means, sometimes, look at the WWE champion spending. He continually opts for avoidance. He'll use the other shower, or he'll just wash dishes by hand instead of getting the dishwasher fixed.
And people have called him out on this directly, haven't they?
Oh, yeah. One commentator is quoted saying, "You haven't fixed your toilet, you haven't fixed your shower, you haven't fixed your dishwasher, you've had the money to do it. I directly told you fix those things and you don't."
And was his response?
His classic response is apparently, "I have to fix it all at once."
Which is...
If you think about it, it's almost textbook learned helplessness, right? The paralysis of feeling overwhelmed, even by seemingly simple sequential tasks. It's like observing someone intentionally choosing the most difficult path, letting everything pile up, by just avoiding the easy individual fixes.
It's quite something to observe. This active avoidance of immediate problem solving, letting issues just pile up and compound instead of tackling them one by one.
Indeed. And this avoidance, this perceived atrophy of basic problem-solving skills, it also ties into observations the sources make about his personal life, his relationship.
Okay, how so?
Well, he often insists he's not lonely. He says things like, I have a family and I have a cat.
Right.
But observers note that his very repeated insistence on this point might actually reveal an underlying insecurity. It suggests that maybe, deep down, he is lonely. The overcompensation kind of points towards the opposite being true.
That's an interesting read. And the commentary gets pretty harsh about his marriage too, doesn't it? Based on observations from the streams.
It does get quite blunt. Some sources suggest his marriage is perceived by viewers as loveless or even dead, based purely on observed interactions or lack thereof, and his perceived emotional distance from his wife on camera. It's a very stark, very critical assessment from these commentators.
And it gets even more concerning when critics suggest he actually uses his wife sometimes, almost as a tool for donations.
Yeah, that's a particularly grim observation, that he uses her as an exploitative, manipulative tool, citing examples like him saying things along the lines of, my wife is going to suffer if viewers don't provide enough support for, say, meal delivery services.
Wow. That's portrayed as deeply manipulative, leveraging personal relationships, potential suffering for direct financial gain. That feels like a real low point.
It really does. And if we try to connect this to the bigger picture, the commentary suggests this profound resistance to external influence, to self-reflection, even when people present what they see as clear opportunities for positive change or personal growth. He just doesn't seem to take them.
Yeah, the sources talk about him being like a shattered, broken husk of a man, especially since a former collaborator, someone called Panda, left.
Right. Panda's departure is often framed as this really pivotal moment in his narrative. Observers suggest it led to a significant loss of confidence in him, a profound unwillingness to maybe try creating the older, more engaging types of content he once did.
It's the kind of thing analysts like DrBackseat on YouTube often explore, isn't it? How these external events, these relationship shifts, can trigger really profound internal changes in creators, sometimes leading to a visible decline in their output or persona. It's fascinating how all these pieces seem to fit together in the commentary.
It really is fascinating. And you raise a great point about analysts like DrBackseat really digging into these psychological shifts in creators. It definitely adds another layer to understanding the observations here, and perhaps a touch alluring, intellectually speaking, to see those connections drawn out.
Well, alluring might be one word for it. It's certainly compelling. So it's not just perceived decline in his ability to, like, fix a dishwasher, but also maybe in his creative drive, his overall confidence.
That's the picture painted, yes. The sources detail these attempts by others, presumably viewers or former supporters, to genuinely help him get out of his comfort zone.
Like offering to pay for trips.
Exactly. Offering to pay for him to meet Hulk Hogan, apparently. Or just go to the beach. Things to break the routine.
And he refused.
Consistently refused, according to the sources, preferring to remain, as one commentator very bluntly put it, a pathetic fucking hermit.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
The language used by some of these commentators is undeniably strong, often really derogatory. You see terms like stupid, stubborn, ignorant, naive, autistic, gay bastard.
Yeah, it gets incredibly harsh.
And we absolutely need to be clear here. We are just reporting on the language used in the commentary. We are not endorsing it in any way.
Absolutely not. But it does highlight the extreme intensity, the sheer frustration, evident in the external observation of his perceived refusal to adapt or take any criticism on board. It's presented as this remarkable, almost pathological stubbornness in the face of what others see as opportunities.
It really speaks volumes, doesn't it, about the frustration felt by people who've watched his trajectory for years, maybe hoping for some kind of change, some growth that just never seems to happen.
And this leads directly into that ongoing cycle of self-deception we touched on earlier, where his loud proclamations of financial success clash, often daily, with the evident struggles and the constant, desperate begging for money seen on stream.
Right, the Schrodinger's beggar analogy.
Yeah.
That seems to capture it perfectly.
It really does, simultaneously claiming to be financially successful and utterly destitute, just depending on the specific moment and whatever narrative he needs to project right then.
In this profound cognitive dissonance, the sources explore how this might actually contribute to a really dark, fucking depressive mindset.
Yeah.
A state where one just allows everybody else to fucking take care of everything.
Which brings us back to that recurring, deeply problematic theme. The repeated observation woven through almost all the commentary that Phil not taking responsibility for anything is a core, fundamental, pervasive aspect of his behavior.
It's like the central pillar supporting this whole observed decline, isn't it? He seems to exist in this state where personal agency for problems, big or small, is just consistently outsourced or denied. V, the transactional bond. Guilt, goading, and a one-sided business.
And this profound resistance to taking responsibility, it feeds directly into the very unique transactional bond that DSP seems to foster with his audience, which often leans heavily into what we could probably call a guilt trip economy.
A guilt trip economy. Yeah, that sounds about right based on the sources. They elaborate extensively on his consistent, really overt use of guilt tripping to solicit donations.
Oh, yeah. For example, he frequently threatens to just quit playing games entirely, games his audience might actually be enjoying, if specific support goals aren't met. And he explicitly states his intention is to make viewers feel bad for not contributing enough.
It really is using the content as a stick against his audience, isn't it? Creating this negative incentive structure for support rather than a positive one based on, actual entertainment value.
Absolutely. The streams often feel less like genuine entertainment or a shared experience and more like a business meeting, as some sources call it, or even a dent audit, just revolving almost entirely around hitting these immediate financial targets.
It creates this palpable tension, doesn't it? Less about the fun of gaming together, more about hitting the numbers. It just transforms the whole interaction into this purely commercial transaction, almost devoid of genuine connection or goodwill.
And this financial imperative, it ties into that significant, often baffling paradox we mentioned earlier. His frequent statements that his time is very valuable.
Right, while simultaneously
being observed performing incredibly mundane, frankly unengaging tasks in-game, like just chopping leaves in Minecraft for ages, and then complaining vehemently about the lack of audience support while doing it.
If his time is genuinely so valuable, the logical question is just, why spend it doing something so unexciting, something that consistently fails to attract the very donations he's demanding? It seems totally self-defeating.
It really does look that way from the outside. It's almost self-sabotaging, isn't it?
Yeah. And the criticism from the sources on this point is quite sharp. They consistently argue he lacks any pride in his craft, any real passion, or even just basic effort.
The prevailing sentiment described is that he just wants to show up, get paid, clock out. Minimum investment, maximum return is the goal.
It's consistently noted that he gives as little as possible to the audience, which inevitably leads to boring, unengaging content, especially once his immediate financial goals for that particular stream segment are met. You can almost see the energy drain once the dent is secured.
Which stands in such stark contrast, doesn't it, to how most successful content creators operate. They typically build goodwill, they foster a sense of community, they craft compelling narratives. They earn sustained support through genuine entertainment and providing perceived value, not through demands.
Exactly. The sources explicitly state that DSP seems to have took all of the wrong lessons from his past interactions, his past successes or failures. He continues to demand immediate payment for effort, rather than investing in his content or audience first, which would likely lead to more organic growth and sustainable support down the line.
So what does this all mean when we bring it all together, when we look at the whole picture painted by these sources?
Well, it paints a picture of a very unique and honestly at times profoundly challenging relationship between a creator and his audience, one that seems deeply rooted in financial obligation and, frankly, negativity.
And his perceived inability or unwillingness to accept criticism or genuinely change course, it seems to prevent him from building a more positive, resilient audience base.
Right. Instead, he seems to remain perpetually dependent on what commentators grimly refer to as pity and spite for his continued online existence. It's a strange foundation.
Indeed. And this entire dynamic, it raises really important, timely questions about the nature of parasocial relationships in this digital age we live in. Where does entertainment end and financial obligation begin? That line seems incredibly blurred here.
Definitely. It's a fascinating study in real time, isn't it? Observing how the internal narrative of a creator can become so profoundly disconnected from the external reality presented by the very content they produce day after day.
It truly makes you wonder about the long-term sustainability of a model like this, especially when, as the sources suggest, this perceived continual mental decline seems to affect every single facet of his content and his interactions.
Exactly. And the sources illustrate that so vividly, don't they? Through his constant declarations of success happening right alongside the constant begging for money.
It's It's the Schrodinger's beggar in action, both broke and successful, depending on the narrative needed at that exact moment.
And this cognitive dissonance, as the commentators observe it, it isn't just seen as a quirk. It's viewed as potentially contributing to that dark, fucking depressive mindset we talked about, where you just allow everybody else to fucking take care of everything.
It's a powerful observation about the potential psychological toll of living this kind of online existence, where that perceived decline might even become a self-fulfilling prophecy in some ways.
And ultimately, yeah, it just circles right back to that core pervasive observation from the sources. Phil not taking responsibility for anything. It seems to be the fundamental, almost immutable element of his behavior described again and again.
A pattern that seems to consistently reinforce the very struggles he complains about. It's presented as this self-perpetuating cycle. Blame is externalized, responsibility is avoided, solutions are bypassed, often in favor of immediate, usually fleeting gratification, like the WWE champion spending.
Right. It's this constant loop where he blames external factors, the detractors, PayPal, lag, the audience not donating enough, for issues that commentators trace directly back to his own choices, his own actions, and his profound unwillingness to adapt or evolve.
His steadfast belief that he is in control, despite the daily begging and the highly contingent nature of his content, it just creates this deeply contradictory and, frankly, difficult persona for anyone, including his audience, to consistently engage with.
It really seems like an online existence built on a very, very fragile foundation, constantly teetering on the edge.
And it speaks volumes about the broader pressures of digital monetization, doesn't it? The sources really dig into how that financial incentive seems to have just overshadowed almost every other aspect of content creation for him, transforming what might have once been a passion, or at least a job he enjoyed, into this purely transactional exchange.
Yeah. The joy of the game, any genuine connection with the audience, it all seems to take a backseat to that relentless pursuit of the next dent, the next goal.
The dent audit, the business meeting streams, that language really drives it home. It's explicitly about the money now, not the game, not the community.
And the moment the money isn't there, the whole structure just seems to wobble or collapse, like we saw with the Minecraft example. It puts the audience in such an uncomfortable position, feeling responsible for his financial well-being, rather than just being viewers seeking entertainment.
And it highlights the inherent difficulty, maybe the impossibility, of genuine growth or connection within that kind of system. If criticism is always grifting and feedback is met with threats, well, the creator just isolates themselves, don't they, from the very things that could help them improve and build a more sustainable, positive relationship.
It's that self-made echo chamber again, where only his own narrative, his own justifications can survive.
Which ironically just keeps him reliant on the pity and spite dynamic he claims to hate. Trapped in this cycle, largely of his own making, it seems.
It's a truly fascinating, if sometimes pretty bleak, look at how an online career can evolve or maybe devolve under that kind of intense scrutiny and those self-imposed constraints, ultimately leading observers to perceive this pattern of, well, continual mental decline in how he manages his life, his career, everything. Outro.
So as we kind of step back from this really deep dive, we've explored DSP's relentless pursuit of money, haven't we? Often through these highly transactional, sometimes guilt-tripping tactics, and how that seems to underpin almost everything he does online.
Yeah, and we've seen that deeply contradictory self-perception in his gaming, constantly blaming external factors, never taking responsibility for struggles, while proclaiming mastery, and his unique, almost conspiratorial take on detractors, dismissing them all as financially motivated grifters.
And perhaps most compellingly, we've examined those observations from the commentary about his perceived continual mental decline, which they see evidenced in his apparent refusal to address basic real-life problems, his expressed loneliness despite insisting he has family, and this profound resistance to any kind of change or adaptation.
A resistance that, as the sources suggest, has really contributed to this perception of him as a shattered husk, kind of relying on this very one-sided business relationship with his audience, all fueled by that self-imposed echo chamber he seems to live in.
It's definitely a complex, often uncomfortable portrait of an online personality trying to navigate the digital stage, where those lines between performance reality and sheer financial survival just become incredibly blurred.
So as we step back from this particular deep dive, maybe something to consider is how this digital stage, this constant online performance, really amplifies every human vulnerability, doesn't it? Every contradiction.
It really does.
It challenges us maybe to look beyond just the screen and ponder.
Yeah.
In a world where literally every action, every word can be monetized, critiqued, memed, how has anyone truly maintained their sense of self? Or how do they adapt when the narrative they build about themselves becomes more powerful, in their own mind at least, than reality itself?
That's a really profound question, and it applies far beyond just the online personalities we watch, doesn't it? It's a question for all of us, really, as we navigate this ever-evolving and often pretty unforgiving digital landscape. How do we stay grounded? How do we keep perspective?
Exactly. Food for thought. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.
Thank you.